Breath of the Wild was ahead of its time and innovated on so many different fronts. But to many people, the thing that stood out the most about this game was the soundtrack. Instead of the usual fully orchestrated scores that instilled the spirit of adventure, they opted for a more sparse open sound, approaching the soundtrack as someone would creating Foley. The music would ebb and flow as the wind would, never constant, and this paired perfectly with the gameplay. I actually saw a comment on one of my latest videos, so I thought I'd try to explain how to make Breath of the Wild music. So, shout out to you. Instrumentation is the first thing to really notice when breaking down any style of music. Breath of the Wild utilizes a ton of piano, usually a grand piano with a lot of natural reverb. In general though, it's a lot of real acoustic orchestral instruments, so your typical strings, brass, and sometimes percussion whenever you have a boss fight. The arrangements are never too dense, never more than 4 instruments playing at the same time. Even if a song had a string section, it was never really a section of strings, rather a few individuals playing stringed instruments. Minimizing the amount of actual instruments playing at the same time creates a more intimate, delicate sound. It's kind of the reason why orchestras sound so much more rich and full compared to a string quartet, which usually sounds very delicate. Okay, this part's gonna be a bit hard to explain, but let's talk about the chords that Breath of the Wild loves to use. Let's start off a bit simpler with something called a spread voicing, which is just a fancy term for spreading out the notes of a specific chord. For example, this is a basic C major chord. You see the notes, C, E, and G, but a spread version of this chord would look like this. You can see the notes are actually exactly the same. The only difference is that they're spread further apart across the piano. The reasoning behind using a spread voicing is to create a more open sound. The further apart the notes are from each other, the more open the sound is, and also allows it to ring out further. The closer they are, the more rich and dense things sound. Also, a lot of the tracks in Breath of the Wild uses just solo piano, so my guess is that they want to use the full range in order to engage the listener, because if you just stick in one range, the listener is probably going to tune out. This part might be a bit confusing, but just stick with me and I'll try to explain it in the most simple way I can. Upper extensions. And no, not these extensions. These extensions. This might look like a whole new language to you, so let me break it down. When musicians talk about scales, they speak in numbers. Let's use C major scale for an example. First note of C major scale is C, which would be number 1. Then D would be 2, E would be 3, F would be 4, so on and so forth. So if you see a C chord on a chord sheet, you'd probably just play C, E, G all together. Now what happens if you see a chord like this? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you would think. First, you play the bass C major chord, and then you count up to 7 and play the 7th note of the C major scale, and you add it all together, and boom, there you have it. You probably end up with something like this. Now let's try a little bit of a harder one. D minor 9. Well, you start off the same way, with the bass chord, D minor, and then you add the 7th, then you add the 9th note. You play that all together, and you'll get something like this. Hopefully you're understanding the principle of how these things are read, so let's take it a step further with an actual Breath of the Wild chord. D minor 11. Start again, off with a D minor chord, and then add the 7th note, add the 9th note, and then add the 11th note, and play it all together. You'll get something like this. Now we're gonna go a little bit crazy with it, and make it sound super Breath of the Wildy. We're gonna combine spread voicings with these upper extensions. So we're gonna take that D minor 11 chord, and then spread the notes out. End up with something like this. Funnily enough, this also sounds something straight out of Spirited Away. Another crucial tip for you guys is using polychords, which is just musical jargon for playing 2 different chords at the same time. A really good polychord that's going to fit within the soundscape of Breath of the Wild is C major chord over D major chord. It just has a really nice, open, uplifting sound to it. It's my go-to. Final tip, when you're actually playing the chords and recording them, make sure you play them at different ranges of the piano. Sometimes play them high, sometimes play them low. And also mix up the dynamics. Some you play quietly, some you play a little bit more loud. Also, always try to roll your chords instead of just kind of playing them all together at the same time. If you follow all these instructions, you'll probably make something very similar to the Breath of the Wild soundtrack. And if you practice super hard and practice all these upper extension stuff, you'll be able to improvise this stuff. Here's an example of me doing a little quick improvisation of these chords, and you can kind of see how close you can really get to that Breath of the Wild sound. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this educational content. I know it's a little different, but I hope you learned something. If any of you guys want piano lessons from me, hit me up through my email in my channel description. I've been starting to do more online lessons, so I'd love to help you guys out if you guys want it. Anyway, if you liked what you watched, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.